A former NFL wide receiver defended the Baltimore Ravens wide receiver core from Dan Orlovsky, and he made some good points.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens. Welcome into the show. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire. On today's show, going to be talking about Zay Flowers being in awe about Jesse Minter's defense with Durham Smythe on a Ravens Wired clip. So we're going to be talking about that and why it is so beneficial for Baltimore's offense to be going up against that defense in practice. But in the first part of the show, former NFL wide receiver Harry Douglas defended the Ravens wide receiver group from Dan Orlovsky and comments that Dan Orlovsky made over on First Take. So let's just dive right into it here. Dan Orlovsky was on First Take with Harry Douglas and Dante Whitner as well. And the conversation was surrounding Baltimore. And essentially the question was, what is the Ravens ceiling with a healthy Lamar? And Dan Orlovsky was talking about a couple of different things and ended up talking about the Ravens wide receiver group, et cetera, et cetera. So Dan Orlovsky on First Take said, quote, I think the wide receiver core is probably the biggest question mark for me. This is a wide receiver group that has Zay Flowers, really good player. Bateman, highs and lows both on the field and off the field when it comes to production and availability. Mark Andrews is still Mark Andrews. Outside of that, just receiver. I'm not putting Mark in this conversation. Outside of Zay, your 2 and 3s are questions. Cincinnati doesn't have those. Pittsburgh doesn't have those. The Chargers don't have those. Denver doesn't have that. Buffalo doesn't have that. New England doesn't have that. And so as great as Lamar is, I think he's carrying from a passing game perspective when it comes to those receivers, a bigger burden than all those quarterbacks attached to those teams. So can they get to the Super Bowl? There's no doubt about it. I just think there's going to be names that we don't know about or champion right now that we will have to in December. And if that's the case, January. So just before we get into Harry Douglas's reaction, I mean, some of these teams like the Chargers a lot of the Chargers upgrades was because of Mike McDaniel. And the Ravens now have a new offense with Declan Doyle. So, like, you're looking at some of these other teams in the NFL and, like, yeah, does Baltimore have the best receiver group in the league? No. But, like, Zay Flowers is a heck of a player. And, yes, I guess you can technically say there are questions outside of the other guys, but it's not like there's, like, oh, this guy has, like, never been anything ever in, like, Rashod Bateman, for example, on the field. Or, man, Jacoby Lane hasn't shown anything, is a rookie in training camp. Like, no. Like, we're seeing the potential from these guys. And, yeah, it's not like established option after established option, but the talent level is there. And so Harry Douglas responded to this and said, quote, I like their receiver group. I think they have a variety of guys that bring different things to the table. You have the quick guy in Zay Flowers. You have Jacoby Lane, who's 6'4", 210, that can make the contested catches, be a red zone threat. Rashod Bateman, who can play inside, outside. I do agree with Dan, has to be a little more consistent, but I do like their group. And I think because the Baltimore Ravens and their MO on offense, ever since Lamar Jackson is even coming to the National Football League, they're going to run the football. They're not going to sit back there with Derrick Henry and say, hey, Lamar, let's go play 7-on-7. That's not happening. So that's not going to force more defenders in the box and allow these guys to have those one-on-one opportunities. When I have a guy with the catch radius, even though he's a young player, I have a young guy in Jacoby Lane with a catch radius that makes a living off contested catches. I'm going to give him that opportunity. Derrick Henry, when training camp started, want to know what he said about Jacoby Lane? The first thing I thought about when I see Jacoby Lane is DeAndre Hopkins. We're talking about a guy who wasn't the greatest route runner, but a great player in the league for a very, very long time and had that catch radius and make contested catches. Lamar Jackson, he's raving about Jacoby Lane as well. So I think they're going to be okay when it's all said and done. I believe in Jesse Minter getting that defense back on track because he's a communicator, he's a teacher, and he puts guys in positions to have success. And then Dan Orlovsky was like, they're not supposed to be okay. And Harry Douglas then said, quote, what I mean by okay, I'm picking the Baltimore Ravens to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. That's who I'm picking. And, so just kind of stopping there and kind of digesting everything. Again, it's not about the Ravens not having any questions at wide receiver. Yes, they don't have the Jamar Chase, T. Higgins duo, or, A.J. Brown isn't like their wide receiver 2 alongside, like they don't have Jalen Waddle and Cortland Sutton. Pittsburgh is another team that I'm just like, what are you talking about? Like, DK Metcalf was not good last season. Michael Pittman Jr. is like better than what they had, but he's like injury prone. And like Jeremy Bernard's a great young player, but like if you're putting Jeremy Bernard in that situation, then why can't Jacoby Lane also be talked about that way? Like that's kind of wild to me. Like the AJ Brown, Romeo Dobbs duo is great. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins is probably the best in the league. The Ravens don't have like that, but Zay's a pure wide receiver one. And below him, a lot of my confidence comes from Declan Doyle giving these guys more opportunities. Harry Douglas talked about the one-on-one situations, and like this offense is just going to be different. And, Douglas made a great point with like, there are going to be so many opportunities. And when you have the run game going and you can use play action well and under center well and all that stuff well, I mean, teams can't defend it all. And if you do, you're going to have to go one-on-one with guys. And the Ravens have a lot of good one-on-one players that win in different ways, right? Like Zay and Rashod can separate with the best of them. Jacoby Lane can go up there and dunk on you with a contested catch. Like you have all that stuff. Tez is still there. Surratt, like, again, it's not like you have 10-year vets at every single spot on your roster. Your veteran in that room right now, if you're keeping 6, is Rashod Bateman, and he is nowhere close to a 10-year vet. So I get that aspect. Like, yeah, it's a lot of youth, but at the same time, having youth doesn't mean that these guys are like going to need multiple prove-it years. Zay already has proven himself. We've seen who Rashod Bateman can be, and I do like Baltimore's receiver group as a whole as well. I'm not saying there's like no risk or no questions again, but like you have to take everything into context. And Orlovsky said to round it out on Lamar in the receiver group, Orlovsky said, quote, "He's a great player," meaning Lamar, one of the all-time greats already, a Hall of Famer. There's no question that this is a good enough roster to go to the Super Bowl, but as we get into the season, the question will come, mark my words, it's August, whatever, late August, the question will come about, do the Ravens have enough around Lamar Jackson to get to the Super Bowl? Because when you play New England, you're going to see Christian Gonzalez. When you play Denver, you're going to see Patrick Surtain. And at some point, that other receiving option on the perimeter has to, in that conference this year, has to become a threat. And right now, that's an unknown. So is Lamar good enough? He's breathing. Is everybody else around him good enough? That's a big question mark. I mean, I don't really understand it, because we know that Lamar is an ultimate floor raiser, and you've put him in positions, if you're Baltimore, over the last handful of years to play with groups and receiving cores that are so much far worse. Like they're so much worse than what he has right now. And again, like there's no factoring in the Jacoby Lane thing. Like there was no mention of Jacoby Lane from Dan Orlovsky and everything that's going on with him. It's just like, why not talk about that? It was like, oh, Rashod Bateman has his on-field, off-field stuff, and all this other stuff. And he went on a rant about all these other teams and their receiving options. And I'm just like, those teams are either similar to the Ravens or sometimes worse off than the Ravens. So I don't really know about this one. I would like the conversation around Baltimore's receivers. You could have the same conversation about multiple other teams that Dan Orlovsky put in there, but just happens to be about the Ravens. And it's probably because of all the youth. Like that's what I would probably have to assume it's about. But at the end of the day, like I have a lot of confidence, and I'm glad Harry Douglas kind of stuck up for him a little bit against Dan Orlovsky right there. We're coming to the second part of the show. We'll be diving into Zay Flowers being in awe by Jesse Minter's defense. So be sure to stay tuned when coming up on the show. Support for today's episode comes from Indeed Sponsored Jobs. When workplace chaos hits you, need the right hire. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps connect employers with candidates who match specific needs like skills, certifications, and location. So less time gets spent searching and more time gets spent finding the right fit. People are finding quality hires on Indeed right now. The minute I've been talking to companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed according to Indeed data worldwide. And whether it's deadlines, piling up too much on one person's plate, or trying to scale something quickly, the right person can completely change how a team operates. And that's why getting in front of qualified candidates matters. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut the chaos, this is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of the show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Let's go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And the show is brought to you by Odoo. Running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works in one place. Odoo is one platform to manage, grow, and scale your business. Those organizations know that success isn't just about talent. It's about having everyone working toward the same goal. And that's true in sports, just like it is in business. And so, for example, when the Ravens moved on from John Harbaugh, they hired Jesse Minter. You can tell that wasn't a reactionary move. The organization had a vision, stuck to it. Now you're seeing the results because everyone was working from the same playbook. Great organizations win because operations matter, and that's why you should get Odoo. Odoo is one platform to manage, grow, and scale your business. Try it for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon. Moving along, Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on this Thursday, Locked On Ravens PM edition of the show. Thanks so much for being here and making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day. We have you covered here on Locked On Ravens with 5 days a week plus more of daily Ravens coverage and content, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. Eastern time. Plus, we have bonus episodes, instant reactions, watch-alongs, the squad show, and so much more here for you. Plus, go subscribe over on Locked On Ravens Hit, which is the new channel here on the Locked On Ravens umbrella. It's under the Locked On Ravens umbrella where we do quick takes on the Baltimore Ravens, and it's obviously here part of Locked On Podcast Network. So if you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe button over there, video form, audio form as well for more Ravens coverage and content. But let's not dive into Zay Flowers being in awe by Jesse Minter's defense, where there was a clip that the Ravens put out, kind of a teaser for Ravens Wired, that is coming out tonight at 8 p.m. I believe that's when it comes out. So, or I think it's tonight at 8 p.m., but it's the teaser clip itself was Zay Flowers and Durham Smythe talking, and Zay Flowers just like not having any idea what's going on with Jesse Minter's defense in a good way. Like, obviously Zay knows what's going on, but I'm just talking about like he's so in awe from it, where Zay said, quote, Jesse's defense is crazy, bro. His defense is crazy. I'm thinking they're cover 3. He's like, now that's cover 2, and just keeps on walking. It feels like there are more people on the field than it should be. And Durham Smythe, he's having the conversation with Durham Smythe. Durham Smythe says, quote, sometimes when I'm watching film, I'm still like, I don't know what coverage that is. And Zay responded and said, quote, I don't. I'm just like, all right, this is what I'm going to do next time I see this happen. It feels like there's 13 people on the field, including him. So Jesse Minter, the Ravens' 13th man. I mean, I like the sound of that, though. I guess we can't really steal that here in Baltimore from Seattle. Oh, I guess 12th man, a little different. 13th man, hey, that could be a Ravens thing. I don't know if any other team has that, but Jesse Minter being the 13th man, I'm with it. But look, this is why it's so beneficial, in my opinion, for the Ravens to be practicing just against this defense every single day. Yeah, the defense is far ahead of where the offense is at this point. I completely understand that, but at the same time, I think that this is making the Ravens better. It's what I talk about all offseason, every offseason. Iron sharpens iron. And this year, with how this defense is playing, the secondary being as lights out as it has, pass rush doing its thing, just being disruptive all over the place. Genuinely, like, when the Ravens go play other teams, the offense is going to be like, man, this is nothing. We go up against Jesse Minter in practice. And, even going up against Brian Flores was an awesome test for them. They have that under their belt as well. So I'm not really concerned about where the offense is right now personally, because, it honestly just feels like, for me, the Ravens are getting better every single day. And even if there are growing pains early in the season, I still think, one, as I've said, they can win games without, having to play their best football on offense, because you have an offense anchored by Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. But, I still do think that they are going to be so detail oriented that, they're going to be able to pick out little nuanced things. And that's the big plan. That's been the big plan for Declan Doyle and Jesse Minter all along, is to coach these guys up so properly and with so much detail, because they're not going, like, Jesse Minter's not going out there and covering Jamar Chase, like Declan Doyle's not going out there and running a route for Lamar Jackson on Patrick Surtain. Like, they got to do this themselves, and they're fully capable of doing it, but they're going to be able to pick out so many things that they have been coached up with and taught all off season into the regular season. And it's going to be something different. Like, I genuinely believe that. So I'm not expecting perfection or sunshine and rainbows all the time, whatever it may be, but I do genuinely believe that this Ravens team is already being coached up well, but already, like, there's going to be so much into the regular season that they're going to be able to identify and pick out. And sometimes those details are the differences between, a first down and a 3 and out, or a touchdown or a field goal, or a win or a loss, or a Super Bowl or not a Super Bowl. Like, all those different things come to fruition. And, the little things genuinely do matter. And I'm very glad that the Ravens have, really put that as an emphasis. And, we've heard some of the players, Rashod, Bateman, and, Ronnie Stanley, talk about the differences and the details between the two coaches and the two coaching staffs, Harbaugh and Minter. And, I think, I can't remember, it might have been Sam Njoku who said this on the show last week. But, maybe it wasn't that John Harbaugh wasn't detail-oriented at all. Maybe it's just Jesse Minter and Declan Doyle are just so detail-oriented into stuff that John Harbaugh didn't do and that coaching staff didn't do. So whatever it may be, there's a lot to look forward to this season. And the practices that these guys are having and the joint practices also are in a great way, as we talked about on this morning's show and, throughout the last week or so with those joint practices. All of it, I think, is going to benefit Baltimore. And, you're going to see them do things that I don't think other teams are going to do in certain aspects, which I'm very, very excited about as well. Plus, there's the technicality of Jesse Minter and Declan Doyle calling these plays. These guys are truly mad scientists. And so, when you have Zay saying this and, Durham Smythe, who he's been with Declan Doyle in Chicago, and that obviously, Declan's a very detail-oriented guy. He's never called plays before, but, Durham knows that dynamic. And then he gets to Baltimore, and Jesse Minter's defense is what coverage is this? It's a big deal. So it was cool to see that insight, and I'm curious to see if there's going to be any more about it on the full episode that comes out of Ravens Wired. That's all I have here today on Locked On Ravens. Thanks so much for tuning into the show. On the right side, like the subscribe button in video form and follow along, subscribe in audio form for 5 days a week, plus more of daily Ravens coverage and content. Plus, again, be sure to go over on Locked On Ravens hit the like and subscribe button over there as well. Video form, audio form. Again, the new channel under the Locked On Ravens umbrella for quick takes on the Baltimore Ravens. Coming up back here for our 6 a.m. show tomorrow. And then we're going to have to do things a little bit earlier because the game obviously is tomorrow. So we'll be live for the watch along at 6 p.m. for that. But, Locked On Ravens PM might come out at 4 p.m. tomorrow. And maybe Locked On Ravens hit, that one will come out around 5-ish. So again, it wouldn't make any sense to put out an episode at 6 p.m. tomorrow because the game is at 6 p.m. So lots coming up here on Locked On Ravens. Stay tuned for everything. Be sure to stay tuned. I'll stay right back here soon on Locked On Ravens.